make sure you can hear us okay. And all right. I think we're good. So it's not officially 9 o'clock. I think Lindsay's going to go ahead and start the recording. We good with that, Linz? Is that a thumbs up? Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for being here. As I said, we're really excited to have Jerry Posner here today, and I'll do a more formal introduction here in a minute. But we are very grateful to be able to talk about this today. I was thinking for a long time about what the next webinar topic would be. And I think we've all been deluged with how we can do better at making schedules, and we can do better at helping some behaviors, although we will do talk more about that in our next webinar at the end of May. But I thought it would be a really perfect time for some good news type of conversation. And Jerry's the best good news guy I know. I will share with all of you who are here that I've probably known Jerry longer than he's known me, at least consciously, because I started going to a place called Canyon Ranch, which many of you have heard of, many, many years ago, actually with my mother. It was our mother-daughter event together, way before I was married. And in fact, I don't know if you know this, Jerry, but I was actually got engaged at Canyon Ranch. My husband asked me to marry him. My parents were both there on the big back lawn in the Berkshires. And it was an exciting event for me, of course. And we are still married, which is great. And last year, or I guess a year or two ago, when my son graduated, I brought him as a graduation gift so he can learn a little bit about health and wellness before he went off to college. And Jerry had the opportunity to meet my son, and he made a profound impact on my son as well. And so I've been listening to Jerry, and it's really been formative in my life. I have gone on gratitude walks with my daughter. I have really started to reframe and look at things differently because of a lot of the very wise and important words that Jerry has shared with me over the years, and I hope he'll share with you. And so I'm very, very excited about this. I have to be honest, I asked in a kind of begging way, please, Jerry, would you join us? And he was so kind to say yes. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and start the formal part of the conversation. It will be between 30 and 45 minutes. And then if you guys have questions, please ask them, because this is for you. Of course, we are the Study Pro. We are an executive function and study skills center. What we are grateful for is that during COVID, we've been able to pivot to being online. We've helped now hundreds of kids with one-to-one executive function coaching and courses. And our summer schedule is online. So all the things you're seeing here, we are doing over the summer. And we are really, really appreciative of the fact that all the parents and families have been on board with us doing everything remotely. We miss our kids here desperately, for sure, but we really are appreciative of everything being able to do online. And we have worked very, very hard to take all the courses that we are teaching this summer and making them interactive, and working so that if we can't reopen, then we will continue to do everything online and make it work for the kids. So as we start every one of our webinars, we think laughter really helps. We are grateful for laughter, so we'll give you a minute to read this. And also, I think that this woman can be a little bit more, have this opportunity to reframe and be more grateful for the fact that her husband is there with her. I think hopefully she'd be grateful for that. And with that, I'd like to introduce Jerry. As I said, Jerry is an incredibly dynamic speaker, and he trains in organizations all over the world. He is an author as well. I sent the book on, at least my left here, Attention Late Bloomers, You're Right on Time, to my sister many years ago. And I thought, what a great book for all of us who have arrived maybe a little bit later in life to where we want to be for than maybe what we thought was right. But when we look back, we're grateful that we took the time to do that. So we will start with actually exploring gratitude a bit and turn this over to Jerry. Jerry, maybe you can share with us how you actually define what gratitude is, and again, a big welcome from everybody here.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. There are different ways that we can define what gratitude is. Generally, it's an acknowledgement or an appreciation or a noticing of things that are good, either good in your life or good in your environment, or something you noticed that you define as a good thing. So the gratitude is appreciation of it, a noticing of it, an acknowledgement of it. And I think when we talk about gratitude, there is a cognitive component and an emotional component. The cognitive component might be I notice something that I define as good, as uplifting, as a blessing, a benefit. You know, I notice it, I'm aware of it. And then the emotional component is how does that make me feel? Does it make me feel happy? Does it make me feel peaceful? Does it make me feel abundant? Does it make me feel blessed? Does it make me feel privileged? So
Mm,
the gratitude can be altruistic gratitude. That is, maybe you learned as a child that gratitude is a good thing just because it's good. And
mhm,
so you're grateful because you learn to be grateful. Maybe you say grace at your meals. Maybe you learn to thank people and to express appreciation, which I think used to be called etiquette, good manners. So, there's that. And then there's strategic gratitude. That is, if I consciously decide that looking for things to be grateful for will help me be kinder, more compassionate, more empathetic, less stress, better immune system functioning, better relationships. These are all things that science says that some form of intentional gratitude practice on a regular basis, that is something you do on a regular basis to remind yourself to notice things that would make you feel grateful, thankful, appreciative if you notice them, that there are neurological and psychological and behavioral benefits. And if I recognize,
mhm.
there's been so much written on this topic, especially in the last 10 or 20 years. The field of positive psychology, which is the branch of psychology that studies happiness and well being, inevitably rates some form of gratitude practice as being one of the most useful tools for well-being, for managing stress, for being what people generally say to be a better person. How do you be a better person? This is an easy way to do it. And I'll just say the reason I like teaching these intentional gratitude practices is because the cost benefit ratio. I mean, generally, maybe 4 minutes a day, maybe 5 minutes a day, but
Mhm,
every day or most days can
mhm,
yield huge results over time. And I'll
mhm.
just say that at the beginning that people get the most benefit over time. That is, these practices are cumulative. That's where you get
Mhm.
your best benefit. Does that answer your
Yeah,
first question? Yeah.
absolutely. No, I mean, I think it's so important, and I'm very excited. I'm already anxious to get ahead. I'm very excited to pick up on a few things that you were saying about being conscious and noticing. I've shared in one of the last webinars, and some people have been here for many of these webinars, that sometimes it's really about reframing, and we're going to talk about this later, that when I see my son's stuff all over the basement, the clothes just messing in the place that I find, to my solace when I'm going to go work out, it's being conscious about reframing that and saying, you know what, I'm really grateful that my son is safe and home with me, and it made it all okay for me. And that's the kind of thing that I think I've learned a lot from you, and I'm really appreciative of. And so, as we've gotten to know you over the years, one thing that I asked you one time after one of your talks, but I'm not sure everybody knows, is really how did you get to this concept of gratitude? How did you become so grateful for gratitude, and what was your journey to get to this place where you're lecturing about gratitude?
Okay. Well, I usually don't talk about myself very much, but in 1976, I had a near-death experience that was very violent,
Mm,
and for a couple of weeks after that, I had this unusual sense of happiness and lack of anxiety, which I found very unusual for me at that age. And it was it was like a different experience. And then
mm,
I kind of went back to my default setting, which was not overly pessimistic, but it wasn't necessarily grateful, you know. But I became interested in what people do to increase the likelihood of well-being and happiness and that good mood feeling. So I became very interested in this, and I started studying and pursuing different areas of personal growth, self-development, from a spiritual or psychological, different avenues. And over
mm,
time, I became convinced that working with gratitude can be one of the easiest ways to increase well-being. And so I started incorporating that into these various things I was doing. For example, I was into this positive thing, to be positive. I was living in Southern California, and for a while I had this telephone service. This was in the 80s. It was called 976 Posi for a positive lift to your success. $3 plus toll, if any. And every day for 3 or 4 months, I would write a 2-minute motivational message and I would record it on this system. And back then, there was no voicemail. We had to actually rent an office in Los Angeles. I was based in Ventura County to have the equipment so people can call it. And writing all of these scripts. Eventually, I morphed that into a magazine I call the Positive Times, which I did for a while, and started lecturing
mm,
and writing on this topic. And so that's the short version of the story, I think. I mean,
mm,
every story has so many elements, and every
mm,
element is important, even the ones that seem
mm,
significant at the time. This is sometimes
mm,
called the butterfly effect. Um,
mm,
from Edward Norton Lorenz, MIT University, who said in his one of his lectures about if can the flap of the wings of a butterfly in Brazil set off a tornado in Texas? Is the idea
mm,
of the butterfly effect, that there are small, seemingly small causative factors, but there are no
mm.
small positive factors. I mean, the fact that we're here today means we're not anywhere else. And because we're
Right.
here today and we're talking about gratitude, could mean possibly could be crucial for some people. It could be crucial or not. It depends. Don't know. Can't be predicted. But anyway, I hope that answers your question about how I
Yes,
arrived.
it does. No, it does, and I think it's really fascinating. I always find that these personal stories are really riveting because everybody has a great story, and I think, as you said, noticing these small things that all kind of link together to bring us to where we are is kind of the central theme of what we're talking about. Um, and there are some incredible benefits for this, right? So those are, I guess, takes us to our next question: is when we establish a practice daily, um, what are some of the things, even in 5 minutes a day, what are some of the things that you've seen and science has said that really can help? How can that really benefit us as not only as parents and husbands and wives, but obviously as individuals, but for our whole family?
So I've been teaching this particular a lecture I created called Practical Power of Gratitude for over 30 years. So I've gotten lots of feedback on it, lots and lots and lots of feedback. So there is anecdotal evidence in the scientific community. If you did a Google search for gratitude science, you would get a lot of data. So what the feedback I've gotten over the years includes things like less stress, happier, better
Mhm.
relationships, more patience, less anger, more energy, sleep better, uh, just to name a few. But your mileage may vary. Uh, like Martin Luther King Jr. said, we may have come on different ships, but we're in the same boat now. I've always liked that quotation. Dr. King was suggesting that you, your parents, your grandparents, your ancestors came from somewhere other than where you are now. And but I like that quotation to consider this idea of different ships. We are completely unique. Our neural wiring is different. Our childhood experiences are different. We're all unique in how we perceive information and process it. Our biases, our prejudices, our preconceived notions, all of these things are unique to the individual. Yet some people have had, as they say, miracles, complete transformative miracles. Because if you have a negative, essentially like a negative worldview, like a negative bias, where you tend to look at things, as they say, the glass half empty rather than the glass half full. If you tend to notice the things that make you feel crummy, and there's things that exist simultaneously that you don't notice. They're there, but you don't see them because you see the things that make you feel crummy, because that's how you see things. That's your bias. That's your cognitive bias, your perceptual bias. So by doing gratitude work, you change your bias over time. You start to become a more positively, a more positive propensity, to notice the things that you normally take for granted, which is practically everything. We take practically everything for granted because of what psychologists call hedonic adaptation. Hedonic adaptation means we get used to or accustomed to or adapt to the things that we at one time were overjoyed, that we were thrilled with. Like if you have a near miss with a disaster, and for like a day you're like thankful you're alive, and then you go back to your default setting, think, oh, this is crummy, awful. Or you get a new car and you're delighted. Oh, look at this fabulous new car. It has, look at the screen. It shows, oh, it's amazing, for like a week. And then it's, oh yeah, it's my car. Well, you could get joy out of it every day. You could be grateful for it every day. We could be grateful we're alive every day. I mean, we could be grateful for running water every day, electricity. Like when electricity goes out, and we really miss it because we really like our electricity. And then it comes back and we're like happy for 30 seconds. And then we just take it for granted again. Like singer-songwriter Joni Mitchell once said in her song, Big Yellow Taxi, don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone? And that's so true. We don't
Paint
know
Paradise.
till like we lose them or they break. So a lot of potential benefits is the answer to your lots.
Yeah. And we've talked a lot about what, and obviously we're going to move now to the how. That's the important piece. But it is worth noting, as you said, that and I think why this is such an important topic right now. And I hope everybody here that is enjoying this will share this with your friends, because I think we all have, as a world, really started to notice those things we took for granted. The toilet paper, the standard wipes, our Starbucks coffee, right? The things that our friendships, being able to hug people. These are things that are gone now, and we have to replace those with something. I think that's kind of a healthy strategy to say, how do I replace um, that, those things that were missing for me? And I think that's what you're saying, that how many of us get into the car in the morning and say, I'm grateful that my car started today? Because when your car didn't start, you notice that again until the chotek crumbles and you get over it in the next day. But really taking stock in the littlest things that are going right for us and being really grateful. I mean, sometimes, honestly, it does become a practice, because you get into a hot shower, you have a chance to dry your hair, and there's 1,000 things to be able to be grateful for. Boy, I'm really grateful that these are things that I have the opportunity to do, and maybe I won't in the future, or maybe other people don't. And I know that, as we mentioned, as we were talking a little bit before this, that of course we are mostly a community here of parents, and it's important for us I guess, to share these kinds of tools and these experiences with our kids. So, what are some of the ways that we can model gratitude for our children?
Well, there are different things you can do to model gratitude for your children. You had mentioned a gratitude walk, which is always a nice thing to do. You take a walk with your child and say, well, for 1 minute, let's just mention everything that we're grateful for on this walk. What are we grateful for? What's good? Sunlight, clouds, air. I can breathe. I can walk. I can think. Like that. Can do that. Um, the glass half full, glass half empty model. I like privilege and burden because we have burdens, yet we also have privileges. Like you
Mhm.
were talking about, your son has his stuff all over the place. It's like, well, it's a burden and we have to clean it up, but it's a privilege that we have stuff,
Mhm.
have a house, that we have a relationship. I know it's like a burden that I can't have my hair cut because of this, but it's a
Mhm.
privilege that I have hair, which is something I'm very grateful for. You know, um, we have dogs, three of them, Gracie, Maxwell, and Jackson. And one time in a very cold, stormy, early morning Sunday snowstorm, the dogs have their own doors and they can go and come as they please. This is like dog heaven here where they live. And anyway, they had a close encounter with a porcupine and they got quilled. And
Mm.
4 o'clock on a Sunday morning, and it's stormy and it's awful. And we have to, we can't take the quills out. They have to go to a vet. Fortunately, there was a 24-hour vet within driving distance, and we were going to take them. So we get them into the car. And, my first thought, which is basically my socioeconomic bias, is, oh, this is going to be expensive. I mean, that's like the first thought that came into my mind because that's how I was programmed as a youth. And I thought, all right, well, maybe there's some burden here. It's an awful snowy day, night, 4 a.m. And, it's going to be expensive and this is awful. And then I started thinking, well, what are the privileges? Well, first of all, we have the dogs. Secondly, we have a Subaru with symmetrical all-wheel drive to get us through the awful
Mm.
weather. Thirdly, we have a 24-hour emergency vet within driving distance. And the more I thought about what the privilege is, the less burdensome
Mhm.
it became. So
Mhm.
we're currently living in an environment that is very burdensome in many ways.
Mhm.
Yet there's also a slew of privileges. So you might do the privilege burden thing with the child, or as Pollyanna wrote about in the classic Pollyanna book, that the term Pollyanna has come to mean irrational optimism. Yet in the original Pollyanna book, Pollyanna's father taught her to play what they call the glad game. It's like, what's the glad game? The glad game is no matter what's happening, look for some good.
Mhm.
What is good here? And you could play the glad game, with your kid. What is good? One, can I get to the Grati-Tools now, or
Yeah, 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 yeah. We can just move straight there. Um, while we're transitioning, I will say that what you all see on the screen here right now is one of the signature Jerry Posner tools, which is to hand out business cards. And one of the business cards that little business cards that he hands out, and we'll send you a sheet with them afterwards. With many of them, you can cut out and
oh,
keep. Is the privilege or burden, and so that will help remind you to look at things as what percentage privilege or what percentage burden. So I will move on to the gratitude tools now, but sharing that as
oh,
well.
I'd like to say something about the percentage privilege or burden card. The original
Yes.
privilege or burden card was just privilege or burden. But then I thought, as a cognitive tool, you think, well, what
Mm.
percentage privilege, what percentage burden? That means you have to think about it. If you think about
Mhm.
it, you're using the prefrontal cortex, which is the logical, rational, reasonable part
Mhm.
of the brain. When we are stressed or angry or fearful, we are grounded in the limbic system, which is the emotional center of the brain. And by utilizing the percentage thing, it makes you think about it, and it makes you realize that it's never 100% of bad.
Mhm.
Maybe you start 90-10, and then you thought, well, maybe it's more like 70-30. And then the more you think about it, the more you
Mhm.
realize how fortunate you are in different ways. Then, it could be 50-50 or even better. And then you
Mhm.
feel better. And because you feel better, your brain's working better and you're able to make better
Mhm.
choices, essentially.
Yeah. So it's that concept of reframing that we
Yeah,
talked about.
you could call it reframing.
So you were talking about the Grati-Tools and of course the famous Grati-Tuesdays. So hopefully you'll cover that as well.
Grati-Tuesday. Yep. So we're talking about working with children. Here's super, super good gratitude. This is super good. I call it appreciating those who made a difference in our lives. And I'll tell you why this is so good, because you get a piece of paper or a journal book, and you start with one name. You write down one person you're grateful for. Could be family member, could be a friend, could be a teacher, could be a neighbor, could be a TV star, could be a musician, anyone you're grateful for, that you're happy they exist. You write one name. And then the next day, you take the paper out again, you write another name. So now you have two. And then the next day, you just write one more name. Now we have three. And then the next day, you write one more name. So over
Mhm.
time, what happens is your every day, your brain is starting to think, well, who am I grateful for? And you start to notice more things, more people that you're grateful for. And then you're going out back when, in the future, we will be allowed out and we will be going places and there will be people. And, we'll start to realize, yeah, I'm grateful for that guy who bags the groceries. I am grateful for that
Mhm.
neighbor. I am grateful for that teacher, and then you realize by doing this that people are nicer to you because you're noticing it, because you're doing this exercise.
Mhm.
And how long does it take? A minute, maybe. It's
Mhm.
great cumulative exercise. So I call these Grati-Tools, Grati-Tools,
Mhm.
because and these are tools that you can use with your kids. Then there's the 1 minute of what's good. Actually, I have a little card that has that, you know, there it is. 1 minute of what's good.
I want to reach out and grab that.
Yeah. So what you do with your kid is wherever you are, at a certain point, and maybe if it's a tough day, you go, okay, 1 minute, look around, and what's good? What's good?
Mhm.
1 minute. And then that could be anything. It could be things, it could be relationships, it could be opportunity.
Mhm.
It's like, all right, we're here, we're alive. That's good. We can see, we can hear, we can walk, we can talk. That's good. We have a nice
Mhm.
shirt, good shirt today. Good shirt day. And it's permanent press, even better. So okay, 1 minute of what's good, otherwise known as stop and smell the roses. Of course, to notice what's good. You could do 1 minute of gratitude breathing, where just for 1 minute you breathe in and you think, I'm grateful I can breathe, and then you exhale and think, I'm grateful I can breathe, just for 1 minute. Uh,
Mhm.
the most popular gratitude strategy, it's been taught by Oprah. It's just been like, it's very popular for 20, 25 years, maybe 30 years, is gratitude journaling. And
Mhm.
this is great. What you do is you get a journal book or a pad, and you write down every day or most days. You try to do it every day. 5 gratitudes. So it could be anything that you're grateful for, anything that's good, anything that makes you happy. Could be a TV show you saw. It could be a meal that you enjoyed. It could be someone who loves you.
Mhm.
It could be the fact that you're well. You're grateful that you're well. You're grateful that you got this new thing. You're grateful that this bad thing didn't happen. And you do
Mhm.
this. Um, you do it every day if you can. Just keep doing it. And you can repeat if you want, but it's better not to. Because honestly, we have so many things. I mean, maybe you
Mhm.
love music. Maybe you love music, and it's like, yeah, I'm grateful for Beethoven, Brahms,
Mhm.
Bach, Berlioz, Bruckner, Beatles, Beach Boys, B-52s, Bananarama, Beyonce, Backstreet Boys, and it's not just the Beats. And you could do that. So then there is the gratitude break. And gratitude break is like a 1 minute meditation, or you could call it a stress buster if you don't like the word meditation. And what you do, and it's very easy, you pick someone or something in your life that makes you happy, that you are happy about, grateful for. Could be a person, it could be something that happened, could be a vacation you took, it could be a happy place. And for 1 minute, you close your eyes and you just imagine that person, place, condition, or thing. You put your attention on it and you allow yourself to feel happy about it. And you do that for 1 minute and do that like every day. If someone's in a really bad mood and you want to get out of the bad mood, take a piece of paper, write down 20 things you're happy about, write down 20
Mhm.
things you're grateful for. I had a friend who
Mhm.
it was her birthday and she turned 80. And I called her up to wish her happy birthday. And she said, "What's happy about it?" She was in a very crabby mood. I said, "It's your birthday." She said, "I'm getting so old." I said, "Well, it's the alternative." She said, "I knew you'd say that." She hung up on me. So I called her back. I said, "Look, get a
Oh.
piece of paper, write 1 through 80. Write 80 things that are good about your life." She said, "That's a lot of work." I said, "Well, you're miserable anyway." So she hung up on me again. Next day, she called back and she said, I did what you suggested, and I felt foolish that I was having a pity party because my life is blessed. And, because of
Mm.
that exercise, she said, I had a wonderful day. I said, yeah, well, know, you changed your focus. You changed the
Mhm.
frame, you changed the game. And so she did. And I encourage people to do that on their birthday, however old you are, like 1 through whatever it is. And just, write down things that are good about your life. And then you've got this 1 page, kind of like a
Mhm.
1 page diary that day. And then you can go
Mhm.
back and say, oh, what was at the top? What was at the middle? What was at the bottom? It's a very cool thing. Oh, and none of these things cost
Mhm.
anything. It's all very easy.
Mhm.
They're free, they're easy, they don't
Mhm.
take too much time. And over time, the benefit accrues to you. It's cumulative. But first, you have to see how this could be beneficial to you. Then you have to remember to do it. Then you have to do it. It's like those three
Mhm.
things. First, like, yes, I
Mhm.
can see the value of it, but I must remember it, and then I must do it repeatedly.
Yeah. I can almost picture a piece of paper on the refrigerator every day coming down and just writing on there that one person that you were talking about.
Yeah.
And I almost feel that for parents, it's not that we have to convince our kids to do it, it's that we just need to start doing it. And I think, at least for my daughter, many of you know me and my kids, and I think my son too, but if I was to just start it without asking her to do it, she would just start doing it. But if I was to ask her to do it, she may not be as willing. So I know we've gone on gratitude walks together, as I've said before, and just noticing the sidewalk or the trees. And now I've really started noticing the birds because there's not as much noise out there, and it's something that I am conscious about and say, "Wow, that's a beautiful sound," and you can feel it lifting your mood,
Oh, yeah.
um,
Well,
really almost immediately.
understand that when we wake up in the morning, we have thoughts. And if you wake up with negative type thoughts, then you're kind of setting the trajectory for kind of a bad mood or a touchy mood or unhappiness. If you start your
Mhm.
day by thinking, getting into the habit of thinking maybe 5 things that you're happy about when you wake up, chances are you will have a better day. That you'll
Mhm.
get your trajectory moving. I once had prostate cancer, and when I was
Mm.
diagnosed, it was intermediate stage, and it was moderately aggressive. So, because I was diagnosed by my very smart doctor, I was cured. So every day I wake up and I don't have cancer. So I wake up every day and it's like no cancer, good. And then I
Wow.
love her and the dogs, and Wi-Fi, and then there's going to be coffee. So like every day, no cancer. Lynn, my wife, our wonderful dogs, our wonderful wife, and the dogs, or my
Mhm.
wonderful and the wonderful dogs, and Wi-Fi, miracle, and coffee.
Mm.
And if I, do that, chances are I'll have a better day. Chances are, I'll be in a better mood. And
Yeah.
you get good mood chemicals, neurotransmitters, serotonin, dopamine, happy chemicals, oxytocin, instead of cortisol, adrenaline, stress hormones. So,
Mhm.
we are living in a challenging environment, certainly. Often we are, and some people more than
Mhm.
others. Gratitude is not a band-aid. It's not to ignore or deny that there's challenges or difficulties. It's to stay balanced. That is, at the same time that there's difficulty, at the same time there's blessings, goodness, um, easy things, things to be thankful for at the same time. So it's stay balanced. Like, this is not good, but this is good.
Mhm.
This is
Mhm.
challenging, but this is a blessing. And that way, it's like,
Mhm.
okay, all right, this realistic. Instead of just going with the bad, and just
Yeah.
woe is me.
Well, I know that we've talked a bit about this throughout this whole conversation, but we're going to end with one question, and if one more question. If you guys have questions, please share them. But we talked a little bit about this, but maybe you can talk explicitly about how do we make this idea of gratitude or the more of a habit for us.
Oh, well, there we go. Focus, frequency, and feedback. The three F's of so habit is what we want to achieve. That's what we want to do. To have the habit of noticing more good and feeling
Mhm.
the positive emotions that are associated with acknowledging that which is good in our lives. And so practice is essential. You can't play the piano well by wishing for it, hoping for it, reading an article on the internet about it, making a vision board for it. You actually have to practice. You have to do it over and over. And then over time, you'll be able to do it. If you ever seen a professional musician, like Yo-Yo Ma, play the cello, it's like practically superhuman. It looks like practically impossible that they can do this, but they do it because they practice, and they practice because they
Mhm.
want to get the result. So focus means putting attention on the thing that you want to develop into the habit, attention. And that's not like quote unquote multitasking. That's when you do your gratitude work, put full attention on it. If you're doing the gratitude breathing, put full attention on it. If you're writing the thing, just put full attention on it. So that's focus. Frequency is how often do I put full attention on it? How often do I focus? Like once a year on New Year's? How often? As gratitude practice tends to work the best if you do a little bit every day. It just tends to work the best if you do, for most people,
Mhm.
a little bit every day. Some people like to do it twice a day. Like when they wake up in the morning, they'll think of 5 things they're grateful for. Before they go to bed,
Mhm.
they'll write 5 things in their gratitude journal, and they'll do it that way. And if things get a little stressful, they'll do a little gratitude breathing or something like that. So, but the frequency of focus differs from person to person to develop a habit. There's a mythology that you can make or break any habit in 21 days, and that's mythology. Actually, that there's a
Mhm.
story behind that. But the reality is that it's different for different people at different times, and there's some habits that are very easy to program in. Like if you get a new coffee maker, and then, like there's new procedures that you have to learn to make the coffee. That can usually happen in a fairly easily, short amount of time, where now it becomes automatic. But if you want to reprogram your basic biases, to your belief system, or BS, as I like to abbreviate belief system, your belief system,
Mhm.
it takes as long as it takes to develop into a habit. I read one research that it's like 4 to 6 months of uh, of daily gratitude practice can transform the way that you see things. Could be more, could be less. It doesn't. There's no. Uh, it's not universal. Um, you know, we've come on different ships, but we're in the same boat now. So, okay, the frequency of focus differs from individual to individual, but a little bit every day. Feedback is this working? How do I feel about it? Do I like it? Sometimes other people give you feedback. They go, "You look so happy. What are you doing?" It's gratitude stuff. It's great. Or you give yourself feedback because you find that you're waking up in the morning and you're happier. You have maybe less anxiety or stress because you're training yourself in essence just to notice things differently.
Mhm,
We could call this attention training. Really, you're just training your attention. To call your attention to things that are positive. It's
mhm,
not weird or esoteric or complicated. It's extremely simple. If I remind
mhm,
myself to look for things, I will notice them. We tend to find what
mhm.
we're looking for, which sounds like something Yogi Berra might have said, but yeah, we tend to find what we're looking for. And so if we're looking for good, we'll find more of it. And it doesn't mean all of it that now we don't have stress or now we don't have anger or no,
Mhm,
we're not human anymore because we're human. We have limbic systems, we have triggers. Um, it's I think it's wise to not seek some unrealistic form of perfection, but to seek improvement or enhancement because that's realistic.
mhm,
Like to be less angry or to be less stressed, or, for your child to be less moody or, more rational, not completely never have bad mood or never be, never lose your temper again. That is somewhat unrealistic. Um,
mhm,
but for improvement. So focus, attention on the thing you want to develop into a habit, frequency, how often do you do it, and feedback, be on the lookout for results.
mhm. I love that. I like really, really, I wrote down we tend to find what we're looking for. I think it's so true. When we're looking for those things that are the reason that someone might have done something that's negative, describing that behavior, or, when we're looking for that, we tend to find it. And I do find that. We do have a few questions, Jerry, and I wanted to get to those too.
Okay.
And a lot of them, and of course, we all realize that you are not a therapist or
Not a therapist.
psychologist.
No, just a guy.
But we do want to
I'm just
just a guy who's
just a guy who
grateful.
wants to talk about these things.
Yes. But we do have some questions, and I think a lot of them are about the struggle that we may have with others, and one of them is specifically when interacting with others who may be struggling. How do you encourage gratitude without dismissing their valid or without not validating their feelings of disappointment or frustration? So something like frustrating or disappointing happened. How do we not try to silver line it, right? Because Brene Brown is like, don't just silver line things. um, we want to share the gratitude, but at the same time validate.
My opinion is that you can't always do it because you can't always influence other people. Um, how do you help them? Well, compassion and empathy, I think, are the two areas to consider. Compassion is how can I help? And so the question might be to that person, how can I help? Is there anything I can do to help? Rather than, oh, look at the bright side. That may or may not be applicable. It might be, it might not be. It's tricky working with other people who are stressed or angry unless they are committed to their own personal growth or personal path, whatever that is to them. In which case, you might be able to get in there with well, it I hear you, and I am sorry that you're going through that because I know it's painful. um it won't last forever. You will get through it. I will help you if I can. Um, I think you acknowledge the person that you hear them. Actually, being heard is really important. You really be a good listener. because there are positive neurotransmitters that get released when someone feels they're being heard. And when someone feels they are not being heard, that's often a stress trigger. Literally, it is literally a stress trigger. So I think that being a really good listener, compassion means how can I help? Empathy means I try to put myself in their shoes. I might be able to, I might not be able to. I'm not going to pretend to. If someone loses a loved one, we can all have empathy for that because we've all probably lost loved ones. But if it's something specific that I have no experience in, I can't pretend to be empathetic because I can't know what they're feeling, because I haven't had a similar experience. So that's a very hard question, and I'm gonna go with be a really good listener, be compassionate, um, offer help, and if it's appropriate, then you might consider things like you will get through this,
Mhm.
and we will help you.
And I'm grateful that you asked, you shared with me. So that's where you're going to show your gratitude.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Right, right.
and
Thank you.
so, um,
That's good.
um, two other questions. So one is how to best convey these suggestions to people who are maybe not open to listening to webinars like this, but could really great, greatly benefit. I think that's from another Canyon Ranch devotee.
Well, the answer is, hey, I just wanted to let you know what I'm doing here with this gratitude stuff. It's really amazingly helpful to me, and you might like it too.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean,
That's
some of it's the modeling that we want to do for our kids
you know
too, right? It's
you,
really,
you can't make anybody do anything, and
yeah.
you can say how good is for you, and
Hmm.
you might want to do it. It really depends
Hmm.
on how good a salesperson you are, because if you're selling an idea to someone or wanting to influence someone, um,
Hmm.
sometimes when you tell people what to do, their defenses go up immediately, and it's not going to go in. It'll just bounce off.
Hmm.
So
Some,
I would answer that question as talk about your own experiences and how easy it's been and the benefit that you've achieved or received, and say, well, you might want to try it too. It's easy.
mhm. And the last question here is how can we try to have good emotions when facing people or family who are ignoring you or isolating you, but you do still want to connect with them?
So let me see if I understand that. So how do you stay in a good emotional state if other people don't want to connect with you? Is that the question?
Yeah, I think that's the question, but MC, you can comment more if you have any clarification. Yeah. So yeah, if there are people who are ignoring you, but you want to connect with them still.
Well, why are they ignoring you? Would be
Yeah.
the question. Are they mad at you? Or do they just don't want to talk to you? Um, maybe you're different.
Maybe a different value system, it looks like.
Who knows? I mean, how can you possibly know? There's just so many potential variables.
Mhm.
Um, I guess, my opinion is, you send an email and try to bridge the gap, and say I really miss you. I'd really love to talk to you. And then if that doesn't work, let it go. They don't want to talk
Mhm.
to you. Well, I mean, I don't know the specifics, and because we don't know the specifics, it's very hard to give any kind of meaningful answer here,
Mhm.
because every situation tends to be different, and there's a lot of backstory, I think, that we don't know.
Mhm.
So I'm sorry I can't give a good answer to that one.
Yeah, it's challenging. I think that with all of these questions and with everything you've said, Jerry, as we wrap up here, I think it is true that we can only control ourselves. And one of the best ways to influence people is for us to start with ourselves and to just start the practice.
Well, yeah.
What can we do today to be grateful? What can we do to put that one name on the paper? What can we do to notice something we wouldn't have noticed before, to reframe, to take some of the tools that you've shared with us today and put them in use. And I think sometimes that's the greatest way to influence people. I know I personally have sat with many friends and heard the things they said and the way they said it, and I thought, wow, that's really impressive, and I want to be more like that. And we hope that we can drop 40 more grateful humans that have shared with us today onto the planet, and they each have their radius of effect, positive effect on the world. And did you want to share something then else?
Yeah, well, I think that all of these techniques are basically do it yourself. How you influence others by your example, possibly. Um, People sometimes want to know if you've been able to change some behavioral or emotional characteristics, that you've been able to change them. And but as far as, how do I make this other person do it? um I think that's, you know don't know.
Mhm,
Usually the answer is maybe not, but you do it yourself. Be a good example, like you said.
mhm,
Offer your experience, just share your experience. I think that's the best way to do it. Tell how this has been useful to you. And include the science. If so, I guess this is my final word on this. If you want to influence others, try to figure out, what's their what do they want? What do they want? Do they want to be happier? Do they want to be
mhm,
calmer? Do they want to be less angry? What do they want? And
mhm,
then when you study just a little bit, of the science behind some of this, then you can go in with the science, which I think is a good way to go in. There's been university studies that strongly suggest XYZ. And
mhm,
that may be helpful. I think it's good to know some of the
mhm,
science behind it.
mhm. And I also would say, as we close, that sometimes just having that conversation, I was doing something that was really meaningful for me today. I was really thinking about the people that I am so grateful for, the people that gave me the break in my career, the people that are out there working in these essential positions, even from the grocery store to the truck drivers. I was doing that, and I found myself to be really happy. Wondering what you're grateful, if you have people like that in your life. And I think that's really one way that we can influence people with kind of coming in through the back door. But um, Jerry, I just want to thank you so much. I feel much more positive already. I'm re energized with my gratitude practice. And I think you are a gift to the world. So we are really, really appreciative of you. And we thank you to all of you who stuck in there to the end, and those of you who joined us at all today and who are listening to the replay. So have a grateful day, and we appreciate you being here, Jerry, and goodbye to everybody. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Bye, everybody.
Bye, Jerry.